Welcome inside the voice of college football, Arkansas. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. Man, this weekend was crazy for Arkansas football. Just crazy, right? I mean, we start off the Notre Dame game on Saturday. The first couple drives, they're not terrible. We're down 14-10. And then just the entire Razorback football program falls apart. It's been falling apart. It all culminated in a 56-13 loss to Notre Dame. At home, a lot of speculations post-game. Is Pittman gone? Are they going to wait till the buyout gets cheaper? Is the defensive coordinator going to just be gone? What are we going to do? How are you going to address the press conference post-game? How do you, if you're your check, how do you validate Pittman still being here? Like so many different questions fans were asking. I'm sure, like myself, a lot of people at the very least clamoring for somebody's job gone. And Sunday, it's announced early morning, Sam Pittman has been fired. They've decided to go in a different direction. Bobby Petrino has been named the interim head coach on Sunday, and Pittman was out. And I didn't know if Yurchek was going to do it this weekend. If I'm being completely honest, I was a little bit surprised. I thought there was a chance we would wait. As a fan in search of something new, I think this was the right move. Um, I think that in 2021, Sam Pittman had a phenomenal year. He got us to 9-4, and that was his second year at Arkansas. I was a guy 2020 when we hired him. I wasn't a super fan of the hire. I thought at the end of the day, if he was able to hire good coordinators and the offensive and defensive side of the football, that we would be a good football team. And early on, whatever you thought about Bryles, I thought he was a good offensive coordinator. And Barry Odom's probably been the best coordinator Pittman's had. And we looked good. I mean, we were 9-4 in our second season. There was a lot of promise. Took a little bit of a back step that in third season, but there was still a lot of promise. And then in his fourth year, we went 4-8, and it just felt like we were really backpedaling really badly. And he didn't get fired after that season. I think a lot of people, even myself, I think thought that was a possibility. Fifth season, he redeems himself. He brings in Bobby Petrino. Last year, we go 7-6. And then this year, right? Just 5 games in, we're 2-2 going against Notre Dame, and we get just utterly embarrassed. And I don't like I said on last Monday's show, I didn't have any expectations that we would win this game. I picked us to lose this game. But they scored about 20 points more than I thought they would, and we scored about 20 points less than I thought we would. So it was really embarrassing, and ultimately it culminated in his job being taken from him on Sunday. And Bobby Petrino was named the interim head coach was the offensive coordinator. And man, just 15 years later, who would have thought we were here? And to see him as our interim head coach, the head coach of this football team once again for the first time since like 2011, it's crazy. And a lot of changes came today, right? Bobby Petrino fires the pretty much the entire head defensive staff. Travis Williams is gone. Woodson, the other co-defensive coordinator, is gone. I know they fired another coordinator as well, or another positions coach as well on the defensive side of the football. So 3 different coaches were out, and a lot of changes just in a couple of days. It's been crazy. Like these shows on Monday, we really just talked about the previous game, what I expected, what actually happened, how we played, and what to look forward to. And this week is completely different, right? There was a game that we played, but so much has happened, right? We fire our head coach. Our head coach from 15 years ago, who was our offensive coordinator, is now our interim head coach. He's firing people. We don't play this upcoming weekend. There's a bye. We'll play Tennessee. And on next Monday, we'll talk about that Tennessee game. But for this week, there really was just a Notre Dame game. And if you saw my post on YouTube Saturday, kind of jokingly, I said we sucked. There's not going to be a post game Monday. I'll see y'all then. I said that I didn't expect necessarily Pittman to be fired on the other end of that. But he is out. And here we are on this Monday with a lot to talk about and a lot of unique things to talk about. But we'll start off with what I've been talking about just in the first couple minutes. Sam Pittman has been fired. Bobby Petrino has been named the interim head coach. what is this rest of the season going to look like? I think you're going to see a really motivated team early on. I think anytime, for the most part, a head coach gets fired, I think at any level of football, but specifically college football of any, I think there's motivation. I think the players, whether it's maybe bulk of their responsibility, usually not the case, but obviously they bear some responsibility. There's a moment you want to go out and play your best football. I've got a couple stats for you. Mike Gundy got fired from Oklahoma State, and their following game, they still lost, and they're a team that just utterly talentless. It seems like. But they at least they played an 18-point game to Baylor. I believe they covered the spread. I'm not sure what it was, but I don't believe it was. I think it was more than 18. I think they were still, and it was a home game for them. Um, but they were still very motivated to play that game. It didn't ultimately culminate in anything spectacular for them. They still lost that football game. But Baylor, yeah, Baylor was favored by 21, and I think at halftime, yeah, halftime it was 28-20. So like they were in a one-score game, one-score battle, even going into the fourth quarter, 35-27. So they really came out. I don't think anybody would have thought they were going to beat Baylor, but they played a really hard-fought game. Virginia Tech, right? They fire their head coach. They're 2-0 since, which we'll see what we do. But they beat Wofford. Obviously, that was expected. But on the road, uh, getting 10 points on the road at NC State, they go get a win, right? And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen for Arkansas, but I think anybody that thought, and I've started to think that 2-10 is what's feeling like is going to happen, I would say hold your horses just a little. I don't know if it's 4-8. It doesn't really matter. Like at the end of the day, this season, it's hard to really get up for the rest of the season with 7 games left. Um, right now, 5 of those 7 teams are against ranked teams. It's hard to look at this schedule and think maybe Mississippi State, maybe Auburn, right? Those 2 teams aren't as talented. Those are the 2 non-ranked teams we play. But I expect to see a team that's very motivated. And Tennessee is who we're playing, not this coming week, but the week after. We got a bye this week. They also have a bye, so plenty of time for both teams to really practice and get ready for this game. Tennessee's going to have some sort of revenge factor for this game, but I really expect to see us motivated in this game. I think we'll be motivated, honestly, the rest of the year. And for a lot of these guys, especially seniors, like where this is ultimately it. It feels like in the transfer portal era and even post-COVID era, it feels like everybody can play college football forever. But a lot of these guys, this is their final year. There's no transfer portal after this. I think they're going to be motivated to play, and we'll see. I think that it's obviously it feels like dark time right now for Razorback football. Um, but I also say I think this weekend was rock bottom. And even if we just climb up a level or two, I think that anything at this point will be progress from where we've been. And I'm excited to see, at least from a development standpoint and just what we can show and put on the table for whoever possibly will be our head coach, the potential players that I hope we can retain. I know a lot of recruits have started to decommit, and that's expected. And a lot of these guys will transfer post the season, and whoever comes in the head coach, we'll expect to see an influx of players as well. Like there's going to be a lot of shifting, but it really turns to, and this is where we're going to spend, I think, a lot of this conversation today, into who could Arkansas possibly bring in to replace head coach Sam Pittman. And I think there's a lot of players or a lot of coaches that we could really look at and turn to and see, hey, this is a potential name. I want to start with just the ones that I'm sure everyone's seen. Some of the currently maybe coordinators for other teams. So I'm going to start there. First, Bobby Petrino is going to be a name. I don't love that hire. I would think that would be a really big step back, and honestly, a very surprising hire if we were ultimately to settle on him. But he's going to be a guy that evidently has really put his name in the hat as of late. Somebody that I think was very vocal in saying he wasn't wanting to be a head coach ever again. At his age and just his point of his career, he wanted to really stick to coordinating in quarterbacks, and I think evidently he's changed that sentiment. And if I was getting paid millions of dollars, like a salary increase to be the head coach, I think I'd consider it too. So it's not that shocking to me of a turn, but he's considering that as well, and I'm sure he'll be considered in that for that spot. Gus Malzahn, obviously, that's his ties to Arkansas. The offensive coordinator for Florida State is going to be a name. I'm sure a couple of just young up and coming coordinators are going to be like for your top tier programs like Oregon at Georgia. Uh, some of those guys and some of those coordinators, those young names, I think are going to be guys that, of course, you got to give a look at just because the potential there. But I really think the two main coordinator guys are going to be Bobby Petrino and Gus Malzahn. And then there's a ton of head coaches, and I'm going to start with the Power Four level head coaches and look at a guy like Rhett Lashley. Obviously, he has a lot of ties to Arkansas. The current head coach of SMU. Um, he's definitely a guy that I think a lot of fans may really want to look at and go after. And to me, right now, if I was picking a front runner, I think there's so many names on this list right now that you could see, and we have most teams have 6, 7 games to play out the rest of the year, so there's a lot of opportunity for this to change. And really see how some of these coaches perform. But Rhett Lashley is going to be one of those names, and to me, probably the front runner if I was picking. And then Barry Odom, obviously the defensive coordinator here under Pittman those first couple of years. Now the head coach of Purdue, was head coach of UNLV prior to Purdue, in between when he was the D coordinator here, and then was the head coach of Missouri prior to coming to here. He's going to be a name that a lot of people look at, really just with the history with Arkansas as of late, and just how well he's done at UNLV. And then we'll see what he does at Purdue. Right now, he's 2-2, and he's lost to two good football teams. So maybe he has an impressive season and a quick turnaround for a program that's on the lower echelon of Power Four schools. So I think he's going to be a name that people turn to as well. That's primarily, there's not a lot of other Power Four coaches to me that a lot of uh, people are going to be looking at, in my opinion. Those are the ones that I'm seeing as potential suitors, and then I think just a slew of group of five coaches that are going to be on the list of a long list of names as potential candidates, and that's going to include in the Sun Belt, GJ Ken, the head coach of Texas State. He's done a great job there. A fairly young offensive mind. I think that's had a real just outburst at Texas State immediately and had success, and I think he's done fairly well this year so far. We'll see what he can do, but he's a guy in the Sun Belt, head coach of Texas State, that I think we'll look at. And then in the American Athletic Conference, it feels like there's so many names that people are throwing out there. Jeff Traylor, who also has ties to Arkansas, the head coach of UTSA right now. John Summerall, head coach for Tulane, previously the coach of Troy, had a lot of success there. He's done well so far with Tulane. Their one loss being Ole Miss. Ryan Silverfield, which would be ironic, the Memphis head coach. Uh, he's done well for them the last several years. He'll be a name to look for. Eric Morris, the head coach of North Texas, who's currently undefeated right now, and he's just had a great season despite it's what I would say is a lack of talent. It seems like at that level and at that program. Uh, he's really done a great job for them, and they're undefeated currently. I've seen Alex Golish, the head coach for South Florida, as another name in the American Athletic Conference. There's really been a lot of guys at that group of five level, I think, that I've seen as potential suitors for the job. But specifically, like Memphis's coach, North Texas, and Tulane, all three of those teams have been really impressive this year, and South Florida as well. Uh, so it doesn't surprise me to see a lot of names like that. And then just the other potential people, I'm sure, like, that are going to be just media driven and just, like, fan driven narratives of guys like John Gruden, and I've even seen Deion Sanders. He was somebody that we talked to prior. Um, just a lot of potential names, out there. I'm sure we're gonna see. It's so early in the season, like Virginia Tech and like Oklahoma State, where we're early on in the firing, like, we decided to fire our coach in the first half of the season, and that's something I didn't see coming. Like, I knew Pittman was on the hot seat. He was probably one of the hottest seats of any coach in the Power 4 level, going into this year, but for him to ultimately be fired this early in the season, I was surprised, and there's gonna be so many names throughout the season. Some of those some of those guys I just mentioned, like their teams are going to really struggle maybe over the next couple of weeks. It's struggle to win games, and their names are going to slowly fall off that list. Or some of these guys, they're going to have the potential to take their Group of Five team to the College Football Playoff, and they're going to be hot names. So just constantly keep an eye on the list of names that you're seeing out there by the ESPNs, the CBS Sports, even the different just local fan base news outlets. Just keep in touch with those because a lot of those names are going to be the names that are circulating and floating around and truly are going to be probably on the list of candidates that they're going to interview and ultimately take a look at and see if they'll be the head coach. But just, I think we really want to go to me in a different direction than when we've been in the past. And if you look at our last coaches, Pittman, Chad Morris, Brett Bielema, just those three specifically. Bielema and Pittman, obviously, I think a lot of fans equate similar arcs and similar coaching types too. I think Bielema was a more impressive coach. I think Bielema was a little less coordinator dependent, but they're obviously, just heavier line guys, coaches that are, to me, more CEO type, um, and struggled to win big games and just lost a lot of close games. Kind of rode that roller coaster of like any coach would, struggled early, peaked, and then came back down, and then ultimately was fired. And then you had Chad Morris sandwiched in there, which was just an absolutely disastrous time as an Arkansas Razorback fan. Those 2 years, like anybody out there saying that what we were doing, how we had been this year, was anything comparable to that era of Arkansas football, that's just outrageous to me. Like Chad Morris didn't win an SEC football game and ultimately won 4 games in 2 years. Like he was utterly one of the worst Power Four coaches of the last probably since 2000. Genuinely for any team, like he just had such a short-lived career and just fell flat on his face for what I think people had the expectations for him. At this point, I kind of forgot that he was the head coach of Arkansas at times. So if I'm as a fan giving my input, what I would love to see is a younger offensive-minded head coach, and I think that's where obviously the league I think has trended. Historically, if you look at even some of the more impressive coaches like Lincoln Riley, Lane Kiffin, and then just even some of the newer molds, some of the guys I mentioned, even at the Group of Five level, but even like some younger guys, and Lincoln Riley could certainly fall into that group. But just the different coaches you see, a guy like I'm blanking on his name, but I'll get back to it. The coach for Arizona State, Dillingham, is one of the guys I'm thinking of. Just younger coaches that have seemed to quickly turn around programs. Um, Somebody from that type of mold is something I would be looking at, um, and just the opportunity to get someone just different than what we've had, at least with Bielema and Pittman. Those feel like the two staples of the coaching staffs we've had over the last 10 years. And I would just love to see something different at this program. I don't want to see a Bobby Petrino or a Gus Malzahn, somebody that's older and had cracks at the bat. Like this is clearly like just very late in their career and kind of maybe a big name hire if it was 10 years ago. I'd rather them honestly take a chance on somebody they really believe in, um, and someone they can 100% sell to the fans because they know that they've been sold themselves on this candidate. Because I'm okay with it, the name not being huge. I'd love for it to be a big name. I'd love, at the very least, for to get somebody like Rhett Lashley in there, and he would fall into that same group as of a Dillingham and a Lincoln Riley, of those young offensive-minded head coaches. Um, but I'd love to see a possible coach like that at the minimum. Like I'd love for us to get out there and get a really big name coach, and that maybe poaching somebody for millions, that's currently a Power Four coach. But that opportunity and to have somebody of a caliber like that would be awesome. But at the same time, if they feel 100% confident and maybe a young and up and coming coach that they feel like is a phenomenal recruiter, is able to maybe be, the typical players coach mantra that you hear a lot today. But a guy that is really appreciated by his players. They're willing to fight for him. They're willing to play for him. And ultimately, he's able to bring in players But I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on the athletic director Hunter Yurachek and his staff and what they can bring in from an NIL perspective and what they're going to use and how they're going to navigate this program financially is going to be a big thing. Like that's just one of the expectations at this point in the landscape of college football is you have to deal with that, and it's a been a real talking point over the last couple of years. And even as a fan, like the state of college football is not, to me, from that perspective, the transfer portal, the NIL, like it's not what it should be or what I think fans would hope for it to be. But I will say that I do still love watching college football, and it's not what it used to be. Sure, from that perspective, and the players staying for 3, 4, 5 years at programs, and that you hate to see that, right? It's been a lot more money oriented, but it really is the day and age and the college football landscape that we live in, and for them to they're gonna have to really prepare and really just understand that that's where we're at, and to compete in this landscape, you're gonna have to compete financially, and so I'm excited to see what that's gonna look like. I hope that we're ultimately able to step up to that plate, but to me, that's a lot of the list of head coaches that possibly could be there. I'm sure there's other names that I missed, but if I'm really giving you my, like, at this very moment, obviously always subject to change, but I'll just give you my early thoughts on it. If I'm looking at Here's the 3 to 5 guys that I would say are really, like, really lock in on these guys as potential head coaches, and then who I personally would want and maybe who I personally think will get it. If I'm looking at it, these 3 to 5 guys: Rhett Lashlee, head coach Southern Methodist, yeah, SMU. Eric Morris, head coach of North Texas. John Summerall, head coach of Tulane. Jeff Traylor, head coach UTSA. And then if I had to throw the 5th in there, maybe Alex Golish, head coach, South Florida. So a lot of American athletic coaches there, and then Rhett Lashlee. If I'm picking from that group who I would personally want, my dark horse candidate would be Eric Morris or John Summerall. Like, I think one of those 2 guys I really think could be worthy of that head coaching job, and I'm sure a lot of fans won't love that. Maybe they would, I don't know, but they're not the big name head coaches. Like I said to start the show, if I was ultimately picking a betting favorite, Rhett Lashlee would be the guy, and I would also be fairly content with Rhett Lashlee as well. He's done a very good job with the SMU program, and what he did for them last year, I don't think a lot of people saw coming, but I definitely did not see coming. Making the college football playoff in his first year as a Power 4 team, very impressive, very impressive. They've had a little bit of a rocky start this season, but that was to be expected after a phenomenal year last year. So those will be my names. Those will be the guys that I would be really highlighting as potential candidates. Ultimately, Rhett Lashlee to me would still be the favorite currently, as of right now. But we're going to switch over. We usually talk the previous game. I want to keep it really brief on this Notre Dame game. I usually do some sort of grades for the offensive and the defensive side of the football. I'm not going to do that. Spoiler alert, they're both Fs. I thought we were going to score. I had the game as a 38-34 loss to Notre Dame, and we lost 56-13. And I was really disappointed with both sides of the football. The offense, to me, came out early and looked fine, but it's just there's so many moments where we kill drives just instantly with our first play of the drive. Drops. Braylon Russell had a bad drop out of the backfield. Taylor Green just can make some mistakes that are just you just wonder what he's doing there. Fumbles are just it feels like have wrecked our team the last 3 weeks. This offensive line to me, this was probably their worst game, but to me, they're still a talented bunch. Like I really do think they can hold their own throughout the rest of the season. Jalen Brown suffered a tough injury in the end zone. I hate that for him, and just he's been a good player. Obviously, that Ole Miss fumble really probably looms over him, but he's had a good season. Um, but this offense really just underperformed. I think even the people that were skeptical with how we play, I don't think would have thought we'd only score 13 points. So that was a tough game for that. And then the defensive side of the football, which the last 2 weeks we've seen just play really, really poor, played just almost as poor as possible. Like 56 was not even close to what even they could have scored at the rate they were scoring. Like, that was just because they didn't care anymore. Like, that game was so out of hand so quickly, so fast. Like, just it was 14-10 with 11 left in the second, and then it was 42-13 at half. Like, just in the next 11 minutes, they scored 28 points, and we scored 3, and it just looked like we had 0 answer, and it was everything. Like, it was a culmination of everything. Like, we just didn't look prepared. We just didn't look up to speed with him. We just didn't look up to, like, mentally, scheme perspective. It didn't look like from a hustle perspective. Like, it didn't look like from any sort of notion that we were prepared to play that football game and that we looked like we were even in the same tier of a program or even a tier below. Like, we looked like we were so many tiers below them. Um, this was as bad of a game as we could have put up, and, like, Notre Dame's had a pretty brutal schedule. They played Miami, A&M, Purdue, and us, and Purdue put up 17 more points than them or than us, and, like, at their halftime, it was 23-35, so they're down 12. Like, it just sucks. It just sucked to watch, to be there, honestly, it was really brutal. Um, and then the second half, who cares, right? Like, they only scored 14 more points, but that doesn't matter. The game was already over, and just from both sides of the football, just looked really embarrassed, and I know going into this Tennessee game 2 weeks from now, I think that I would take just from, like, a against the grain, betting perspective, like, I would take the idea that Arkansas is probably gonna cover whatever spread, they had for that game. It could be 2 touchdowns. I don't know what it'll be. Um, but I just like, usually just that post-coach firing momentum, just hype from a, like, let's just go out there, and now that now that the media and now that there's not so much scrutiny and so much coverage over, "Is our head coach gonna get fired? What's the rest of the season look like?" Like, now that all of that's gone, all bets are off, like, we're playing with house money. I think you just play a little bit little bit looser, a little bit freer, and Tennessee's a team to me that just hasn't been a mixed bag. Like, they played in a heck of a game against Georgia, then almost lost to Mississippi State last week. So, like, they're kinda all over the place. I don't think Aguilar's been really tested as a SEC quarterback yet, truly, but he won't be against us. But I think we could look better than maybe people think we will, and we'll see what happens in that game. But ultimately, the story of this weekend is Sam Pittman's firing and the defense, all of the defensive coaches being out. Like, this, I'm interested to see, and we'll talk about it more next week as we play Tennessee, kind of what the coaching staff looks like going into this upcoming game 2 weeks from now. What the roster looks like, and see if there's any maybe changes now that Petrino's the guy that's running this team and is at the helm of this all, and maybe he'll have some different takes on some players, and maybe some guys get some different playing times just because he's the head coach there now. So truly, we'll see what that's going to look like. But that was the big news, man. There's really nothing to me bigger right now in college football than that firing, and then going into this weekend, just the speculation of names that possibly could be the head coach for us. So that was really it for today's episode. Next week, we're going to be talking about this Tennessee game on the road. Right now, currently the 15th team ranked in the nation. A lot of possibilities for how we're going to play and how we're going to show up with Petrino as our new interim coach. But we're going to talk about it all next week. No post game this weekend, obviously, because we don't have a game. So I'm gonna see you next week. It's probably going to be around 5:30. Could be a little bit earlier, but we'll have that link posted just for y'all to see. You can be notified, and it'll be up there before we go live. So just keep your eye on that. But 5:30s on Mondays. Next Monday is going to be the Tennessee game. Talking about that game for the upcoming week and what they're going to look like and what we've got and the potential to play this upcoming weekend. So thank you for tuning in. Once again, I'm also just going to real quick plug our voiceofcollegefootball.com/shop /shop We've got a lot of merchandise on there. If you just put it vocfb.com/shop, there's going to be a team drop-down menu. You'll look down there. Arkansas is one of the first ones sorted alphabetically. So check that out. There's a lot of different merchandising options. If you feel the opportunity to just kind of support the show financially, we'd love that. So vocfb.com/shop. We'll see you 5:30 on Monday. God bless. And man, just go Hogs.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.